Masterclass.
Like I've talked to so many services businesses. They're like, oh, how do you plan hiring? It's like, what does your finance say? Like, when do I make this hire? It's like, I don't know. Show me your forecast. Like, I don't have a forecast. It's like, well, then don't hire. Like, do the forecast first. Then we can talk about like, when do you need another resource or should you hire this role?
Welcome to Think Business with Tyler, sharing our methods and strategies for success. Join in on our conversations with business owners as we highlight their triumphs and detail how they overcame the challenges they faced while continuing to grow and scale their business. It's time to think life, think success, and think business with your host, Tyler Martin.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Think Business with Tyler. What if I told you that scaling your business past 10 million might require walking away from what you've built, or even cutting half your team? Today's guest, Graeme Barlow, has lived that exact reality. From building a gaming empire as a teenager to running a 40-person digital agency, to eventually making the gut-wrenching but right decision to cut over half of his team and focus in. And it worked. In this episode, we talk about what it really takes to scale without burning out, why clarity beats complexity in business growth, and how Graeme learned through painful trial and error that being the smartest person in the room isn't a strategy. If you've ever wrestled with letting go of a pet project, hesitated to make a hard leadership call, or wondered if your business has quietly outgrown you, this is the conversation you need to hear. Let's dive in. Hey, Graeme, welcome to the Think Business with Tyler podcast show. How's it going today?
It's fantastic. Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you. I'm jealous. We had a little pre-conversation about you being in Vancouver with mountains and beautiful scenery all around you. Tell us a little bit about it. I'd love to start there.
Yeah, it's been a city that's always inspired me. And 20 years ago, got a chance to kind of get a sampling of it. And I've been back a few times. And about a year ago, finally made the decision where you're going to make the jump from Ottawa, which is definitely not Vancouver. And yeah, it's been amazing. Honestly, like being in a city that inspires you, being around stuff that inspires you is huge for growth.
That is so true. Okay, now on a professional level, what do you do for a living?
Yeah. So full-time world is I'm CEO of a company called Iversoft. We do custom software development for brands all over the world. I've been doing that for about 9 years. Fairly active angel investor. I also run a community called FounderLink for early stage founders, as well as provide coaching for growth stage founders.
Wow, very cool. Okay, I want to go back to 10 years old. We're going back a little ways. Most people, that have built successful businesses, I'm not usually starting at 10 years old, but with you, I am. Tell me about like that first entrepreneurial lessons that you learned when you start your company at 10 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is one of those fun ones where it's like necessity is the mother of all invention, something like that. I got into gaming super, super young. And I think like a lot of us, and we're talking like the original gaming, like Neopets Online, Diablo 1, that kind of era of stuff, and spent a ton of time online and got into, we'll call it healthy negotiation with family parents on how much time should be spent on the internet or not. And a lot of that kind of culminated in a conversation at one point around like, what is the value of this time I'm spending on the internet? And that kind of led me through different series of events to look at eBay at the time. And Diablo 2 was kind of taking off. And there was actually a pretty decent market at the time for specific items on eBay. And so I was able to turn around very quickly and say, hey, I have some of the things that are worth something. I can sell them on eBay. And that kind of closed the loop on where the connection was between gaming and value. And very quickly that kind of snowballed into, okay, well, I can do this more. I can sell more things, which then led to like, well, it kind of sucks to sell all the cool stuff. I like having the cool stuff. How do I do this better? So I connect with a bunch of friends. We started building basic bots to automate the games, which ended up scaling up more, used the automation to buy more stuff, got into different markets because we were kind of oversaturating markets we were in. And yeah, over the course of like 5-6 years, got pretty intense about running bot networks on pretty much every major online platform you could think of at the time, selling currency wholesale.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
Running bot networks on pretty much every major online platform you could think of at the time, selling currency wholesale.
Now, was this Rocket Owl that was your first company?
No, so this was called Snow Currency, and it was
Okay.
kind of loosely affiliated IRC groups and all the other stuff from good old days of the internet.
I don't even think I want to know. Was Dark Web included in this, or did you manage?
this predates anything. Half the web was dark at the time that we were doing this. So
that's true. That's a good point. So I do want to go to your Rocket Owl adventure. In particular, what I wanted to talk about there is I know you got it to over 1 million users, but I know you also had a really challenging. You were down to 30 days of cash. It may even be less than that. I want to talk about that. Like, what decisions did you have to make? Maybe unpopular. How are you dealing with that? And maybe set the table on what Rocket Owl was first.
Yeah. So Rocket Owl was my first, we'll call it adult, real-ish company. So this was after we'd sold Snow Currency, after I'd gone to university, dropped out in my second semester, tried to do some other things, and then ended up connecting with the other co-founders of Rocket Owl. And this was like the early days of Zynga and Farmville taking off on Facebook. And we were sitting around a table going kind of like, what if games weren't awful? What if they had a good message? What if they had some good real world impact? And so it was founded on the premise of let's build social games on Facebook that contribute to nonprofit and have a social message. So we built a game called Green Space, kind of themed around green energy, renewable technology, and partnered with nonprofits all around the world to use in-app player purchases. And this, keep in mind, this is like circa 2011, 2012 that we were doing this. So very early days in this ecosystem, and used player purchases to drive huge impact. We ran a campaign that contributed almost 250,000 trees being replanted in a reforestation effort, did big partnerships with Canada Wildlife, World Wildlife, other organizations, which was awesome. That's the fun side of it.
Right.
The less fun side of it is it was my first ever experience raising capital. So we raised a seed round for 600,000 from angels. Then we did a kind of follow on, raising another 1.5, and then closed what we were calling at the time at Series A for 3 million. And I was fundamentally of the philosophy of like the Silicon Valley narrative of like you go to the moon or you explode against the wall. Like that is the trajectory of how you build a company. It's like rocket ship or nothing. And Rocket Owl was kind of a good thought experiment or experience in what happens when you hit the wall for a number of circumstances. So our first round was unbelievably fast. I think from the time we put together the deck to the time we closed 600K was, I want to say 30 days, but largely by virtue of having a very experienced team, being in a good position in the market. That went fast. The next round did not, and was built on kind of like, we have good idea. We have some early momentum, but we don't have enough. And so the next 1.2 that we raised, I think we raised over the course of 9 months, about 150K a month at a time.
Wow.
The company was burning about 100 grand a month. And pretty much for that entire year, we were in a cadence of close the next check or die.
Wow.
And so did that for about a year, which, yeah, from a cash flow perspective was spicy. I think most times you're sitting between 30 and 90 days of cash flow.
Were there any, like, sorry to interrupt you, but any brutal decisions that you had to make when it comes down to those, like keeping the doors open type of thing?
Yes, but those came later.
Okay.
the brutal decisions at that point were still very much like absolute conviction and mission of where we're going. There is no option to fail. You cannot stop. You cannot rest. You cannot do anything other than kind of keep raising, keep pushing, keep growing.
Got it.
From there, we ended up closing. So we closed that, hit growth, went through a wild experience where we got featured on the homepage of Facebook's App Store at the time.
Wow.
The game blew up. Then the servers blew up, literally. Spent a week and a half completely offline trying to fix everything because I think at our peak, we were adding like 50,000 new players an hour. before it just died. And so learned a lot on the technical side there, had that momentum, raised a larger round from a group that was very excited. The terms were 3 payment tranches for the full investment. The first tranche, they didn't transfer the funds. We had a whole conversation. It's like, okay, like we're still gathering funds on our side. We'll double up on the next tranche payment. Just kind of hang in there. At that point, we made the choice to hang in there. Everyone put in essentially everything they had available to kind of get us there. We had big company-wide meetings, asked people to go, okay, like, what if we switch to every other payroll? And everyone was like, yep, no, we believe in the vision. We're going to do this. Stretch, got to the date that the second payment tranche was supposed to happen. And the group said, yeah, this isn't a fit for us. We're out. And at that point, we were 90 days past the point where nobody had any money possibly to do anything. Team was like 28 people. And you asked in our pre-conversation, like, what are those humbling moments?
Yeah.
Like I can tell you as a 23, 24-year-old CEO, when to date, everything has gone your way for the most part, and you kind of feel invincible, standing in front of a whole group of people saying, I didn't get this deal done, and we're going to go down to a team of 5, and we're going to do everything we can to keep our lights on, but they're mostly going to be off. Also, take your computers with you because I don't think they'll be here tomorrow. That checks your ego pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, live through that.
So what, I got to know the rest of the story here. So is that just the end of the story, or is there a knight in shining armor come in, or what happens?
I say knight in shining armor, in that we had built some incredible tech. We still had huge volume of players and activity. We had decent revenue coming in from the game, not to support the team and the growth that we were pushing, but we were able to fundamentally restructure the whole company, regroup in whole, and then ended up selling the IP and the company itself to an investment group in Ottawa called Kesha Technologies. As part of that deal, I ended up going and running their early stage accelerator and early stage venture fund. And GreenSpace got ported over to mobile, ended up kind of being sunset about a year and a half later. But yeah, managed to get a bit of a win out of it, and a whole lot of lessons learned and experience gained from what that journey can be like.
Yeah. How did you handle, I guess I have 2 questions here. One is on the cash flow side. Like, what was the takeaway if you had to do it all over again? If you had to redo, what would you have done differently from a cash flow standpoint? That's the first one. Second one, I want to talk a little bit about leadership.
Yeah. So cash flow perspective, I run companies today so differently, so much more emphasis on revenue generation and kind of discipline around runway. Like, I think it's funny. We were very disciplined in how to survive month to month. We were not good at what is the actual escape clause for this in 120, 180 days, right? Like we spent 2.5 years in all out survival mode, it's just funny because I coach and work with founders today that come to me and they're like, I'm so afraid I have 9 months of runway. I was like, you have 9 hours of runway. Come talk to me about afraid. Like, we got all the time in the world to solve problems. You're looking at it the right way. This is a good thing, but like, it teaches you a lot of resilience on that side. I mean, now I do, like, in all of our companies, we do weekly cash position analysis. We do cash flow. We do all the good forecasting and P&L stuff. I send out templates to everyone that'll take one of how to do a cash flow statement, because it's cash flow and P&L are fundamentally different things. You need to watch both. Yeah. So learned a lot.
Do you find there's any correlation to the people that are successful, the founders that are successful, that do grasp that data and take it to heart and understand it versus the ones that don't?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, yeah. One other thing I will point out there on the finance management side, I work with a lot of founders now and have been involved in a lot of like raising for companies. Your raise is not done until the money's in the account. Right. And I think that's one thing a lot of founders miss is they'll get a term sheet and they'll take all of the pressure off of continuing to talk to investors, continuing to talk to people, continuing to pitch, continuing to push. And especially in at least the Canadian ecosystem, I see this a lot where like term sheets and negotiation and final steps get drawn out over months. And then when companies are in a bad position, they get renegotiated. You don't stop until the money's cleared.
Yeah.
I don't care who you're working with. I don't care what you know. Like until the money, if you're in a world where you're raising capital, you get it in the bank and you don't stop until it's there.
Yeah, yeah. And on that same note, that's true with bank loans. That's true with selling your company. Too many times people go into cruise control when they think they're going to sell their company and then it all falls apart. Or a bank loan, you think you're going to get it. I had a client a couple months ago came to me, a new client, thought he was going to get X amount of dollars to be able to fund a big project. And they just went dark on him, the people that he said was going to give him money. And now he had 2 weeks to find $500,000. It's like,
yeah,
it sucks. On the leadership side, you mentioned being 23 or 24 years old, and now you've got all these cash flow issues. What was that like having to talk to your team? And were you able to be very transparent to them? Were you kind of like trying not to tell them too much so they didn't get scared, but also not make them too surprised? How are you handling that? How would you handle it now versus then?
Yeah. So I was on the personal, like emotional side. I did not handle it well. I was a disaster. And it took me a while after that to kind of rebuild any modicum of like confidence or bravado. In terms of communication, I've always run on a very transparent basis. Like Rocket days, Iversoft days, every company I've done in between, we do either quarterly or monthly all hands meetings where we'll talk cash position, revenue, expenses, all of it. So like I don't like a world where there are surprises for people. I think what I handle differently today is the level of risk I take on behalf of other people. I am a high risk taking individual. I think like over the course of my life, I've effectively done all in bets like 5 times. 3 have worked out, 2 have gone horribly. Not everyone wants to live that way. And especially when they are an employee in a company, they really don't want to live that way when they have a family. And early days at Rocket, I was very much selling the dream of like tuck in, take the risk, do the thing. And now I generally structure where it's like the founders and the investors, the people that are the high risk people, they bear the risk, and we do everything possible to minimize and mitigate risk for anyone that hasn't opted into that, and be very transparent with like, yeah, you don't ever touch with or mess with payroll. You give people very clear visibility into what cash flow for the company looks like, and just get obsessive about managing cash flow and financial tools that you have access to, like making sure you have lines of credit, making sure you have alternative solutions, making sure that, we did this a few times over the last number of years at Rocket or at Iversoft, where we saw significant changes coming, and we're able to kind of map out on the finance side of like, okay, how much cash will it take to pivot, to make these changes if we need to do this, and start making the decisions 6-9 months before we're in a problem situation. So we have cash to resolve it, not waiting to like the day we're like, oh my God, we have to deal with this. And now we also have no resources to do it. So yeah, just way more proactivity on that, and then communicate as much as you can through it, because informed people are generally easier to work with. And I'd rather be able to look people in the eye and be like, you know what I know, and I'm sharing as much as I can, like within reason. There's some of the day-to-day up and down that you don't go into, just because not everyone needs that heart attack, but the quarterly basis and the kind of general trend line for the companies is always important to share.
Yeah. that is, you really hit the nail on the head on something. Just looking at that visibility ahead is just such I can't tell you how many times I've seen in my career where business owners aren't looking ahead, and then all of a sudden they run out of money and they're like, well, what do I do now? And it's a shame, because if you do it's really not a lot of heavy lifting. If you do a little bit of heavy lifting, that visibility is worth your sleep and your peace of mind.
Oh, so I feel like you and I will bond well over this, but any company I'm involved in any capacity, investor, advisor, board, coach, partner, an absolute minimum requirement is that they have a 12-month forecasted P&L and a 90-day cash flow that's updated on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
If you don't have those, I'm like, we don't talk until you do, because without at least at a minimum those 2 tools, we have no idea what's going on. Like your P&L can look great and you can still run out of cash and die.
Yeah, you're doing them such a service by requiring that, because so many times I get it. You at least in the founder world, I think they're a little more incented because they know they're going to be taking other people's money. Oftentimes I'm dealing with business owners that it's their own money, and so they're good at their trade. Doesn't necessarily mean they were, taught how to be a CFO, frankly.
Oh, yeah.
And so it becomes very low on their list. And it's just unfortunate. But that requirement to have to know those numbers, the ones that do in my world, or at least either hire someone and then takes the time to kind of understand it, I think they do exponentially better because they're just aware of the things going on and they're thinking strategically rather than letting the numbers guide them and make decisions for them.
Right. It's the basis for making every decision, right? Like I've talked to so many services businesses. They're like, oh, how do you plan hiring? It's like, what does your finance say? Like, when do I make this hire? It's like, I don't know. Show me your forecast. Like, I don't have a forecast. It's like, well, then don't hire. Like, do the forecast first. Then we can talk about like, when do you need another resource or should you hire this role? It's like, until you know the cash side of it, throw a dart. I don't know. Like, how else do you do it?
Yeah.
It's wild, but people are afraid of it.
Yeah, they are. They really are. It's some people, I think also when it comes to numbers, like it's confusing, frankly, for them. And that's not their world. And so sometimes when things are confusing, we avoid them.
Yep.
Unfortunately. Hey, you've used the term allergic to being the most important person in business. What does that mean? Explain. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So this has been, I mean, a lot of ways I've phrased it in the past, but like I proactively in any company I'm involved in, desperately try to not be the person responsible for anything. And in practice, what that means is kind of an obsessive level of focus on not being the key person for delivery, not being the best person in the company for how we do any component of what we do in order to scale. And the positive net result of that is that we're able to build very scalable teams and very scalable services because my default behavior is not, I'm going to jump in and fix that. I often work in companies or built companies where I can't. Like I am not a good dev. The last time I did any meaningful programming, I was 13 and it was awful. So being in a situation where it's like my job and the way I've always viewed the job of CEOs or business owners or whatever is like, job one is don't run out of money. Job two is set the direction. And job three is get the right people. If you do those three things well, you can scale. A lot of people like to cram other things in there. It's like, oh, do the special thing that I can do. Only I can do. Provide my divine insight into whatever. And it's like, if you want a job that follows you, great. If you want a company, that can't be the thing. It has to grow beyond you and it has to be more than you. And yeah, it's almost kind of like professionally developed laziness. Like I don't want to be the person that is required to do this. If me disappearing for 3 or 4 days means everything grinds to a stall and people are stuck, I have failed, like fundamentally failed. So that's a huge component of what I try and bake into the philosophy, not only for myself, but also any senior leader in any of our companies is build systems and grow to the point where like you aren't the definitive answer for the core thing. And we build repeatable systems so that other people can do it. And then you get to play more of coach, direction, guide for that and be very forward looking in the business.
If you're a business owner feeling stuck in your business, overwhelmed, responsible for everything that happens, and working long hours, Tyler helps his clients develop processes, hire high-performing team members, and better understand their financial metrics and numbers to allow for a more predictable, less hands-on business. To schedule a free, no-pressure consultation, head to thinktyler.com and click the meeting button. Tyler would love to see if he can help you work on your business, not in your business. Schedule a consultation today at thinktyler.com. Think life, think success, think business.
And then you get to play more of coach, direction, guide for that and be very forward looking in the business.
Yeah. So how do you accomplish that? Like, how do you set up? Is it you that takes control of setting up the systems? Do you delegate that to someone else? How do you get to that point where the business isn't relying on you?
Yeah. So for me personally, it's always been work in teams. Like I've had a co-founding team in every company I've ever done. I've never been a solo founder. I have all the credit in the world given to solo founders because it is a lonely, crazy thing to take on. But for mine, it's always pair with people who are really good operators, really good executors, and then honestly kind of empower and support them to not get pulled into the weeds and be kind of the separate set of hands that generally leads more to the sales and growth side, and then goes in to try and pull people out of the operation side. When I'm working with individuals that are in their own business, it's generally a very heavy emphasis on like replacement ladder, like, right? Like, I mean, probably the best breakdown of it has been Dan Martell and Buy Back Your Time behind me. But like, look at everything that gets done in the business, start chunking out the stuff that is $5, $10, $20 an hour, start carving those pieces off and really, really, really drill down on what's your core skill, document the hell out of that, generate enough revenue so we can start handing it off. And I think when you hold pretty strong discipline to that kind of process of like document, train, hand off, you can very quickly get out of the weeds. Yeah, if you're open to it. Where a lot of people fail is they kind of hand off. It's not immediately done at 110% of what they could have done, and so they take it back. Even if like 70% done by somebody else is amazing, lean into that. You can work that up to 100% without kind of reclaiming the whole thing yourself.
Yeah. Have you ever had someone within your team, although it sounds like you've got a pretty strong team, but someone that tries to make their problems your problems and kind of gets you sucked into owning things? And if so, how do you handle that?
Oh, so many times. The number of times in the past 20 years where you get caught in the moment, you get caught in like the urgency of something or the escalation of something. And 2 weeks later, you kind of put your head up and like, what? Well, hold on. My entire day now looks like stuff I owe people. And I don't know how this happened. So many times. And like, honestly, at that point, you kind of have to make the call. Like, am I the best person to be solving this? And is this temporary? And if it's temporary and you're the best person, cool. Grind through it for a week or two and pull yourself back out. If it's not going to be temporary, even if you are the best person, immediately start looking at like, okay, who else can I train for this? Can I just record everything I'm doing so we at least have some semblance of training material for the next time someone needs to do this? Or kind of what system failed? What happened that created this necessity? How do I go fix that? And then get back out of it. I don't think I can think of a time where that's happened for more than a few weeks.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, I want to go over to Iversoft. So my data, you've gone from 500K, my data from my research, from 500K to probably over 10 million now in revenue, which is a pretty awesome accomplishment. So kudos to you guys. Any unpopular decisions you've had to make as a leader that stand out that you're open to sharing?
So many. The one that was probably most controversial and honestly most painful prior to the pandemic, I'll paint you a little bit of a picture of Iversoft at the time and then what we went through. Like prior to the pandemic, we had seen the need because we were initially a mobile development shop. We kind of branched into custom software development. And prior to the pandemic, we'd seen the need of like, oh, like every time we launch an app, our clients are like, oh, how do we promote it? How do we grow it? And then like, how do we support that long term? We were still doing very much project-based work. And so we were looking at like, how do we maintain a relationship with the client? How do we stay more involved? And so we went from software development to digital agency. And we made 2 acquisitions, including a very prominent social media marketing firm, and became the digital agency for everything. And we did branding, we did websites, we did social, we did ads, we did community, we did everything. Team was about 40 people. And it was starting to get painful of just how do we support all of these groups? Our sales team had no idea what to sell anybody because it was like, we do everything, which is never a compelling pitch. And anytime we had a contract, it was like, cool, that kept that person busy, but I have 3 other people that do 3 other random things that are idle. So I need to go sell that for the next few weeks. Anyway, fast forward, pandemic hits, world goes crazy. Our entire marketing portfolio died pretty much overnight as the whole world kind of took a step back and tried to figure things out. And at that point, we made the call to cut 50% of the company and focus entirely on mobile development. We said, look, we've gone too broad, too big. Even though we have other parts of the company that are working and whatever, this doesn't feel sustainable and we need to focus. So underlying philosophy being we also need to protect the core jobs that we think we can actually sustain in a insanely uncertain world. So I went from a team of 40 to 19.
Wow.
Which was Obviously not super popular.
Sure.
Gut-wrenching, awful decision to make. Ultimately, one of the best things we've ever done for the company. Like over the next kind of 18 months, we regrew all of the size and then some because it was very easy to sell. It was very easy to say, here's what we do, here's who we work with. That's it. That's all. You want other stuff? Here's a battery of other people that do those things. The marketing piece had a silver lining in that, like, because we'd acquired a company, we ended up spinning that founder out, gave her all the clients that we had, and she ended up launching an awesome agency on the back of that, and they're still killing it. But that was probably one of the hardest things we went through as an organization. That was one of those, like, you got to take your medicine a little bit. And one of those things you read in a book where focus is everything. And then you kind of sit back and you look at an org chart and you look at all your offering and you go, oh, we missed. Do we keep doing, or do we actually do the thing to fix this?
Yeah. How did you come to, I'm going to call it the pivot. So you pivoted basically.
Yeah.
When you had and cleaned up some areas that really didn't make sense. It just kind of cleared it kind of cleaned up your whole offering. So you were easier to understand as a business. When you come to that decision, is that you making that decision? Is that you and a bunch of colleagues? And what pushed you to actually push the trigger and say, okay, It's time for a change?
Yeah. So I think ultimately it was a lot of conversations with our senior leadership team. Like I have two other major partners in Iversoft, our CTO, Vicky, and our CRO, Matt. You'll probably enjoy this. I think the thing that nudged us the most was looking at the finances and breaking it out by division and realizing how much certain divisions were subsidizing others. And it was like, if we do kind of like read the eye chart test, we only look at this part of the company, we're really healthy. Oh, when we look at the whole picture, this is not sustainable. And what if we were only looking at that part? Because as much as I like the grand vision of this thing, we haven't figured out how to simultaneously run 3 types of companies in one, shockingly. And wouldn't it be better if we ran one? And so it was a lot of hard conversations and a lot of back and forth. And ultimately, I think the decision comes down to CEO making that call, but you do it in partnership with everyone on your team.
Sure. That comes up a lot in my world, where business owners and entrepreneurs, they have their pet project that they're running under their theme of their business. And when you uncover it and you start asking questions, you realize their pet project is being subsidized by the main business thing. And it's a hard conversation, because some people feel, I had a client once, it was a year and a half, they were trying to develop a certain area of their business. And every meeting we'd get into, it was bi-weekly meetings, and they never had any traction. Yet it was like one of their rocks, which is part of EOS. It was one of they had 2 scorecard items, and yet they were always red and they were never doing it. And finally, you have to have one of those come to Jesus conversations. I tried to have it many times, but there just gets to a point where it's like, hey, cash is dropping and these are never changing. Are we really in the right direction? Those are hard conversations. We're doing it in a podcast, and it's like, it doesn't sound that big of a deal, but I imagine there must have been, there's a probably pretty intense conversation you had probably.
Oh, incredibly intense, incredibly emotional, incredibly impactful to people's egos, right? It's for so many reasons, right? You announce things like acquisitions, you announce hyper growth, you do all these things, you're part of one story, you identify as one story. And then it's like, okay, the smart thing that is good leadership means we're going to go in a different direction. And it's going to impact a lot of people's jobs. It's going to impact a lot of people, and you're going to have to rewrite your identity a bit. That's hard. I love the anecdote about pet projects and fun ways to burn money in companies, though. One thing I find, I don't know if you've tried this, but before you poke at that too much, trying to get business owners or founders to take a bit of a step back and think longer term. What is the goal? What are you building the company for? Oftentimes it's some element of financial freedom or a lifestyle or something. And then using that frame to then go looking what if we didn't light all of this money on fire and you focus on the core thing that makes money, and will move you halfway closer to the goal you're actually trying to get to, that you say you want to get to for family purchases, house, cars, whatever. I've had a decent amount of success being able to break through almost the illusion that those projects are necessary, right? It is a trap we have fallen down so many times in the past. We've got pretty good discipline around it now. It's literally written now into our ethos at Iversoft. We don't do pet projects. We are a services company. We are a profitable, high growth services business. If you want to pitch a product, cool. Go launch a startup, raise capital, and do it that way. We are not a product company, and we're not doing that anymore, because as much as it worked for Basecamp and they turned agency into product thing, like, that's great. We can also run a phenomenally profitable company and make a great world for a lot of the people in the business without doing these kind of all-in cash bets every 6 months to just keep setting you back and not setting up a resilient foundation.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I love how you mentioned really bring that goal to life, and then what's going to get him to that goal. And as long as just logic prevails, usually, if they have that clarity. Do you use any tools in your business like EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, or anything? Like, what keeps you guys? Because what I'm hearing you say is, man, you're ultra focused. And when I hear that, usually when companies are ultra focused, they're using some type of tools like an EOS. Do you use anything?
So I think I've played with all flavors of those in the past. We don't have anything formal or any formal doctrine we follow. I think we're kind of on a modified hybrid of EOS.
Sure.
But yeah, for the most part, it's been just exposure to all of them, and then 20 years of getting myself beat up over and over again, and starting to get really clear on all team members. Like, yeah, again, what's the goal? What are we doing this for? And let's drive towards that. And where I find the disconnect sometimes in like small business or like services, like some people have the like unicorn risk mindset of like, I need to do these big swings in a non-unicorn type business and aspiring to actually only make $1 million a year. Not saying that that's not a lot of money, but like,
sure,
if your goal is $1 million a year and we're not aiming to be $1 billion unicorn, align to that versus like trying to take swings that are going to take you public.
Yeah. So going over to FounderLink, you talk to a lot of founders through FounderLink. Do you see a common blind spot through founders, like, or one that repeats a lot? Is there one that stands out?
Oh, absolutely. Like, finance is the obvious one.
Yeah.
The other most obvious one when I talk to everyone, and the number one problem people will tell you is, I don't have enough revenue, I don't have enough sales. And then you audit their calendar and go, okay, if the number one thing in your world is revenue and sales, show me how much time every week you are spending to drive revenue and sales. I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, it is not proportional to the level of problem they say it is. They're like, my number one problem is revenue and sales, and 90% of their calendar is internal meetings. And it's like, cool, we're going to flip that. If that is truly the number one thing in your world, you're going to go do sales until you can hire people that can actually do sales. But like, for me, that's the biggest blind side, is that people will say one thing of like, this is the thing that's causing me stress, but then it's also the thing they avoid the most.
Yeah. Yeah. The sales one, that's the way you just articulated that is funny, because I've heard that a million times. Like, oh, I've got lead problems, I've got this problem. And then you say, okay, well, block out your time. You're going to spend 20 hours this week doing that. Yeah. And then you talk to them the next week and it's like, well, I had to work with my bookkeeper. I had to do this. I had to do that. And there's like that avoidance of just dealing with what is the perceived real problem.
You want to know the scary push I give people?
Yeah.
It's like, if you're under $1 million of revenue, all of your revenue problems can be solved with cold calling. You don't need anything else. You don't need any other tools. You don't need other fancy, flashy, whatever. Most businesses, if you're under $1 million, get on the phone.
Do they do it?
4 hours a day, every day.
Do they do it?
The ones that do grow. The ones that don't, I kick them out.
Really?
Right? Like, well, it's either that or do something else. I don't want to hear the same problem 3 months in a row, right?
Yeah.
Like, either you're serious about solving it or you're not. And if you're not, I can't help you.
Yeah.
And I also don't want you around everyone else in the community being the consistent person. It's like, I have a problem and I can't solve it. It's like, well, we've given you 3 ways to solve it.
Yeah.
Pick one and go, or go talk to someone else. I don't know. Like, it's not rocket science.
I see in staffing and recruiting, because that's where my background's at. I'll get people that are starting a staffing and recruiting business, and oftentimes they'll reach out to me. More than happy to talk with them. But what I found is the same theme happens like 90% of the time. I usually will I'll say, hey, you're going to have to get on the phone. You're going to have to talk to people. Oh yeah, no problem. I can do that. I'll go LinkedIn, everything else. And usually what I find is like the vast majority just won't do it. Like, it's just, they just, unfortunately, just some people just don't have it in them to want to have to face that rejection and make those calls. And I don't think I've ever seen one become successful by avoiding that.
Oh yeah, it's you can't avoid it, and you also scale matters, right? In all things, scale matters. But like, I'll have some people like, oh yeah, I made 20 calls. I was like, you don't have to go extreme, but the companies that we work with that are doing this as a like core discipline, and granted, they're at a step ahead of where a lot of people will be, but they will do between 200 and 400 calls a day, 5 days a week, every day or every week. And that is the actual level of this is a full discipline.
Right.
If you're entry level doing it yourself, 50 to 100 a day is doable as a baseline. Like there's 1,000 other ways to do it. But if you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't have enough money, I need revenue. It's like, cool. You have a phone? Great. Let's build a list and go. And ChatGPT can build you a list.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff. Hey, I got 2 questions. We probably got about 5 minutes because I've done a poor job of podcast management. I want to ask you, you have a gaming background. Is there anything in your gaming background that you kind of intertwine in your strategic thinking or just your into your business world of how you make decisions?
Absolutely. I like to joke that literally everything I know about business, I learned either playing Diablo or World of Warcraft. Like, if you've run a raid team in World of Warcraft, you've convinced 40 adults with nothing other than a video game in common to show up at a specific time, focus for 3 hours, do only their job in a complex set of systems in real time, over and over and over again, with the promise of hopefully getting something at the end. That is about as complicated as running a team gets. And money is a better motivator than loot sometimes. And almost everything I know about market economics and how to barter and trade and move currency and kind of manage inventory, create demand came from trading massive scale on Diablo. So I fundamentally think gaming is one of the best ways to learn anything because I was a horrible student.
Yeah.
Great at gaming.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. Okay, last one. I want 2 or 3 tips if you got them, whether they be personal tips or business tips that we could apply into our lives. I'd love to learn something from you. So if we could end on that, that would be awesome.
I love it. First one is going to be really, really basic, which is just start. I get so many people reaching out to me wanting to know what degree they should get or what course they need to take or where to go study business. And it's like, if you're serious about running a business, just start. Sell something to somebody and then do it again and do it again after that. And you will learn more by doing, failing, and getting rejected than any textbook that can help you. Like the number of people I've worked with that have an MBA that are 6 months into their business being like, this is nothing like what I studied. It's like, yes, this is chaos embodied. People are unpredictable. Clients are unpredictable. Services don't work the way you want them to on paper, but you learn and you learn by doing. So that would be the one on the business side. On the personal side, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got early in my career that is I still use as a litmus test today is 50% of everything in life is showing up. And if you do that consistently in life, you will win more than not. And anytime I'm looking at my calendar, looking at an event coming up or looking at something in my calendar going, I don't know, it's been a long day. I don't know if I should go. I don't remember why I said yes to this. Like so often, those are the events that if I actually drag myself to and show up and just talk to people, I make insane connections. And so just show up.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
I make insane connections. And so just show up.
Yeah. And then I'm going to put a bonus one. You talked about being in Vancouver kind of lit your fire. It kind of fueled up those creative energy juices and kind of got you going. I think that's a big one that gets glossed over. Put yourself, it doesn't necessarily have to be in Vancouver, although that's a great place. Put yourself in a position where it's kind of like firing you up, getting your mind free, open and clear to be able to think and create. I think that's a big one too.
I love it. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay. So your main website is graemebarlow.com, graemebarlow.com. If people wanted to reach out to you, is that the spot to go or is there anywhere else?
That website or Graeme Barlow on any social platform.
Okay. And you're on what, all of them? LinkedIn,
Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, all the things.
You're everywhere. Okay, cool. Hey, Graeme, you're awesome. You're fun to talk with. I love hearing your success. I still think you probably beat the record at 10 years old. So I don't think they'll be any younger than that. But I love your journey. I love hearing how you've grown as a leader, as a business owner, and you warmed my heart right away. Talked about finances. So thanks for all your time, and hope to talk to you again in the future.
Tyler, this was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Wow, that was a fun conversation. Graeme's story is a reminder to me that growth isn't always about adding. Sometimes it's about cutting deep, simplifying, and getting back to the core of what actually works. Here's my take. If you're trying to grow past 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, name your number, you can't do it by duct taping new services onto an already wobbly structure. You need focus, you need systems, and you need the courage to make decisions that might be unpopular, but are absolutely necessary. Most of the time, what's dragging you down isn't the competition. It's the part of your business you're too emotionally attached to let go of. If that hits home and you're realizing your business needs clearer financial strategy to scale, I'd love to help. You can book a call with me using the link in the show notes. And hey, if this episode gave you something to think about, do me a solid. Leave a quick review. It helps more business owners find these conversations. Thanks so much for listening. I'll catch you next time on Think Business with Tyler.